Lesson 4.8, writing linear equations from tables. So before we get started, let's just remember a couple of different things that we already know. Let's remember that the slope-intercept form of the equation is y equals mx plus b. And we know that m represents slope and b represents y-intercepts. All right, so you might be wondering, why are we writing equations from notes when this is something that we kind of already know? And the reason is, today we're going to show you something that you can do on your calculator to kind of help figure this out. So let's go ahead and let's take a look. In problem 1, it says find the slope, the y-intercept, and the equation. So hopefully we know that if x is 0, okay, that y value right there is our y-intercept, right? So in this case, 11. And then we find slope, right? We remember that slope, we talk about the change in y over the change in x. So in this case, my y is changing, it's going up by 5, and my x is going up by 1. So my slope is 5 over 1, which is just 5. So my equation for this is y equals 5x plus 11. All right. What I'm about to show you is how we can actually find the equation for this with our calculator. All right. And the reason we would do this is take a look at problem number 2. In problem number 2, what do you notice? How are we going to find b? I do not have an x value that is a 0. Now there's a few ways we can find it, but I want to show you how to use your calculator to do that. Okay, so what we're going to do here is we are going to just follow along and kind of watch me here on my calculator, and then we'll talk about the steps again here in a second. So in order to do this, you're going to hear me say a lot, I'm going to say stat edit, stat edit, stat edit. So let's click on stat, and then your first option here says edit, and that's what we want, so stat edit. And it's going to bring you to all these different lists, L1, L2, L3. What you need to know is that L1 is where we put our x's, and L2 is where we put our y's. So my x's here, I'm going to do 3, just click enter, and it'll go to the next one. 5 and 8, right, I'm taking the numbers from problem 2. And then click over, now I'm in my L2 column, so now I'm going to use my y's. So now I'm going to type in the 14, and I'm going to type in the 20, and I'm going to type in the 29. All right, so you heard me say stat edit. So let's write down the steps up here. I'm just going to write calc, and I'm going to write step 1, we do stat edit. All right. Now that we have put our information into our calculator, we want to actually calculate this equation. So the next thing we do is we press stat again. So over here, we're going to press stat again, but see, we're done editing. We don't need to edit anymore. We actually want to calculate something. So I'm going to say stat, click over to calc. All right, we want to click over to calc, and here's what we want. Now take a look at these different options. var stats, 2 var stats, none of these look good. Oh, wait a second. Look at number 4. Do you see how it says lin reg? And then it says ax plus b? Doesn't that kind of remind you of mx plus b? Well, it should. It's the same thing, right? They're using an a, we use an m, it's the same thing, right? Lin reg stands for linear regression. When your calculator does this for you, it's called a regression. So linear regression. Here we go. So option 3, we're going to choose 4 dot dot lin reg. Okay, so just go ahead and click on number 4. You can just type in the number 4, and we have all this stuff right here. We just need to calculate. So just go ahead and go down and get to calculate. So just click enter on calculate. Okay, now we've got our equation. So it's telling me that a is 3. I'm going to put this is the same as a. So a is 3 and b is 5. So my equation this time is just y equals 3x plus 5. Okay, y equals 3x plus 5. Now we could have totally done that with this table as well, right guys? From now on, honestly, when we get a table, most of us are probably just going to do stat edit. I know it seems like this took me a long time, but it really, once we start doing it, is really pretty fast. Okay, now it doesn't always work. Let's take a look at problem number 3. problem number 3. Here we go. Well, let's just try it. So we're going to do stat. We're going to do edit. I have numbers in here right now, so I'm going to click up, and then I'm going to press clear. So just clear, enter, and now the numbers are gone. So click up on the L1, and you press clear, enter. All right, so now my lists are fresh again. So I've got 0, and I've got 1, and I've got 2. Okay, on the right, my Y's, they're all 9. But I have to put it 3 times, so I need them lining up like in the table. Okay, so stat edit. Now we're going to go to stat over to calc. And we want a linear regression, right? We think this is line, so we're going to press enter. Down, down, down to calculate. Okay, so now it's telling us that my slope is 0x plus 9. Okay, well we're not going to write the x 0x, right? So really my equation is y equals 9. Hopefully this makes sense. Did we kind of notice that what was happening with our y's? All of our y's are 9, so my equation is just y equals 9. Right? If I graphed these points, they'd be like 0, 9, 1, 9, 2, 9, right? That would be a horizontal line. All right, I guess that makes sense. So we got y equals 9 for number 3. Let's take a look then at number 4. Let's see here for number 4, sorry. All right, in number 4, we're going to put in our calculator. So stat, edit. All right, so all my x's, right? All my x's are, let's see, -2, and -2, and -2. And then my y's this time are, clear this out. All my y's are, let's see, we got 8, we got 1, and we got -6. All right, we did stat edit. Now we're going to go to stat calc. So stat over to calc, same number 4, right? Linear regression. And, error. We're getting an error for this one. Now we did it correctly. Why are we getting an error? Well, let's kind of think about what's happening here. So this one was a horizontal line. Slope was 0. You guys remember what this graph would look like? This would be a graph right here. So -2, 8, -2, 1, -2, -6. Okay, what kind of line is this? That's a vertical line. You guys want a vertical line? Your equation is x equals. So in this case, my equation is x equals. And any guesses? This equation was y equals 9. What do you think this equation is? You got it. X equals -2. All right, if your calculator gives you an error, you're going to have an x equals equations, or you typed it in wrong, right? That's why we always kind of check with making a little graph here to see if it makes sense. All right. On the back side of this, let's kind of recap what we know about slope and y-intercept, okay? And I'm going to go through this really quickly, so just pause it if you need to. All right, for the top half here, we're talking about slope. Words and symbols for slope. Well, from a graph, we know that it's just rise over run, okay? Or we can say change the vertical change over the horizontal change. Okay? All right, from a table, we just look at the change in y over the change in x, right? For ordered pairs, we use our slope formula, y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. And from a word problem, we look for words like per and each and every. And these are all indicating slope, or you might want to remember the phrase rate of change. Okay, that's another word, rate. So these are all different ways that I expect you now to be able to recognize that we're talking about slope, finding slope from all these different ways. Let's look at the next one, which is talking about how do we find them in when we're talking about a y-intercept. All right, how do we find the y-intercept from a graph? Well, it just is where the line crosses the y-axis. All right, from a table, we're going to say look where x is 0. From an ordered pair, we would have a 0 for x and just a number for y. And then from a word problem, this is the one that we kind of talked about a little bit in the review. We're talking about things like starting fee or initial fee or delivery charge. All right, or flat fee, something like that, right? Where you have something that's being charged once. So as we move forward, I need you guys to really this whole unit is about slope and y-intercepts. But you have to find them in so many different ways that's where we need to be headed right now, is focusing on how to figure out the best possible way based on what we've been given, right? Where we're given a graph, a table, order pairs, or a word problem.